approve it 3-2. So that was approved and it will be moving forward. The other thing I wanted to just report on is we had our general plan open house last night. I saw actually everyone in this room was there. So thank you so much for attending. If you were not able to attend or we have a couple other options. So we're going to have the board set up here at City Hall for the next couple weeks out in the hallway. Some of you might have seen them. So we'll be putting something on Facebook and the website about it tomorrow that they will be available during business hours for people who might have missed. We also have an online website that is currently there is a link on our website, but we're going to make it more prominent now that the open house is over, where a lot of the same information is displayed, but there will also be an online survey that people can go on and take. And I would encourage each of you, if you have the opportunity, to participate in that survey as well. And then, yeah, so that now it's moving forward. Another thing, this is just for your information, our economic strategic plan is almost ready. I've been in communication with our consultant on that, and we're looking at scheduling a meeting here pretty soon where we'll do a presentation to the Planning Commission, and we're considering doing a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and City Council to kind of present some of the concepts and ideas out of that. And so we're hammering that down, but that will likely come up in the next few weeks. And so we'll keep you guys posted.
Okay, great. Thank you, Stephen. Item 5, presentation on public hearing to solicit public input on the proposed amendments to the sign regulation ordinance 157-755 through 157-.761.
Thank you. So the Planning Commission is well aware of a lot of the changes that are taking place, but for the sake of public hearing, I thought I would go through some of the big points of what is being proposed and kind of the thoughts about it. And also, I'll probably mention through this report, I'll mention that we have received some feedback. We received 2 written comments. One was just sent to you directly by the commenter, and another one was sent to staff, which we forwarded to you. And I think there's some provisions of those that will probably be worth discussion, but I probably won't bring that up in just the presentation section, and maybe we can talk about it after the public hearing. So to first start, maybe just to summarize, so what is being proposed in tonight's amendment is to create what we will call planned commercial centers within town that are commercial developments of 10 or more acres, and essentially what the proposal allows them to do is to have bigger signs, but fewer signs, especially for monument and pole. Really, this only applies to monument and pole signs. So signs that will be out on the street, like, advertised for the business. This doesn't have an impact on wall signs, so signs that will be posted on the buildings. We're not proposing any amendments to that. So that's the basics of what is being proposed. And so we'll go through a few of the specifics. So kind of starting on the ordinance. So one of our first big changes is we updated what we considered a planned commercial center. We further defined that it is, so essentially right now what it reads is, and I won't read the full ordinance in this presentation, but just kind of go through the highlights. But the proposal would create planned commercial centers, which would be regional centers consisting of multi-tenant individual, large and small scale commercial uses that sell a broad range of goods or services. These centers must contain at least 10 acres of commercial land and contain at least 1 retail facility. And so applicants who are property owners that would meet that criteria could then come in and apply to get a planned commercial center and then designation with their sign permit and provide a full signage plan to the city. And so kind of sticking with the planned commercial centers, really what the big changes would be, once I get down to it. So it establishes these, and then it allows for a couple big changes, or a couple changes from what would traditionally be allowed. So one of the first ones it allows is what we would consider allowing for off-premise signs. So typically our code requires that if a business has a sign, it has to be on that business's property. Within planned commercial centers, you would be able to put a sign anywhere for any business, anywhere within the center for any of the businesses within the center, as long as it met our setbacks and everything else. So that there's an exception allowed there. It increases the maximum sign size for monument signs to 120 square feet. For pole signs, it allows for those signs to exceed 80 square feet, which is the current limit, and allow them to be up to 200 square feet or up to 250 square feet if the sign contains area indicating that the center is located within West Haven. It also reduced the setbacks for these signs. Typically, they have to be set back on for 1 foot per foot of height of sign, but this would just reduce it back to a straight 10 feet. And it also allows for a maximum height from 25 to 30 feet. And then the other change with these is that allows for, it takes out the clearance for pole signs. So typically the signage have to be 10 feet above the ground. This would change to eliminate that ground clearance for pole signs, so that way they can do more banner or pylon type signage. The other changes that we're looking at is for sign spacing. And so typically we would allow for a sign on each property, and then they'd have to meet the spacing of the different signage, which by code they could potentially do either pole sign and monument sign. So this would limit it to one or the other, and then has certain spacing based on the excuse me, based on their frontage and access points. So one of the changes I did make between now and last time we met is within this table, I added a note to commercial centers with from 0 to 599 foot of frontage and 600 to 1200 feet of frontage. That essentially the note allows an additional sign may be allowed subject to section 4 above. Essentially, section 4 above allows for signs to be placed at each access point for the development if they are on different frontages. And so when I was reading through it, I felt like there might be some conflict in interpretation. I felt like that cleared it up. So those are really the big changes within the commercial center. There were a couple other changes that are worth mentioning. At last meeting, there was some concern about signs being kept in good condition. And so this would be on page 13 of the proposed ordinance. We added a paragraph 13, which requires all signs shall be kept in good condition and working order. One recommendation that we received this week by a planning commissioner, Jeff, was emailed me, is right now what the draft reads is in a timely manner. And to replace that timely manner with some sort of time limit, I talked to our code enforcement officer yesterday and today, and he felt like 30 days from time of notice would be a good addition to it. So instead of just having to respond within a timely manner to the notice, that they'd have 30 days to respond. And so that is one recommended change that I would recommend the Planning Commission consider. And then the other material changes to the ordinance is under our violations section, which would be the last section of the ordinance. And essentially we clarify that it's subject to actions within this chapter. And we also added a paragraph C about illegally placed signs. Essentially, this allows the city a little bit more enforcement ability if a company or somebody puts a sign in a not proper place. Really what's driving this is we have a lot of businesses in the area, particularly some real estate businesses that are placing a bunch of yard signs all over town, and we continually pick them up and remove them because they're put in the right of way. This essentially would allow us to provide a notice, and that if they continue to violate, then we could charge them with a Class C misdemeanor. So, any questions before a public hearing?
Did you get the couple of typos?
Oh, yes.
As well?
Yeah, Jeff also sent me a couple typos where I can note each of them if you'd like, but I went through it.
As long as you got them.
I fixed them in my draft, but I didn't have time to post them to the one that was on the.
Why? Just because you were doing this general plan stuff, forever?
Question. So back on, the signs being kept in good working condition, I like the 30 days, but is that 30 days to respond back or 30 days to have it fixed?
30 days to have it fixed.
So,
That,
you know, if all the contractors are just so busy, I'm wondering if 30 days is enough. I wonder if we should maybe use 60 days, just because everyone is so busy. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I think I can't speak for Dan, but I think what he normally does is he contacts them, he gives them, notice of it. And if somebody's having a problem, they're busy and stuff he's really flexible and usually gives them, the time to take care
Yeah.
of that stuff.
So my draft has, and I'm sorry, I don't have this in front of you tonight. Essentially, the language Dan recommended we add to it is repairs to signs shall take place within 30 days after notice from the city or other time frame agreed to by the city.
Perfect. So, yeah. All right, well, great. Anybody have any other questions of Stephen before we think about going into public hearing? All right. If not, I will entertain a motion to enter public hearing for input on the proposed amendments to the sign regulation ordinance 157.755-157.761. All anybody has to do is say, so moved. So moved. I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
I,
Oh, Andrew's there too. Okay, we have commission members, Commission Member Stimson and Vice Chair Reyna on Zoom. So thank you both. All right, that was all ayes. So we are now in public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak during the public hearing? It's your 15 minutes of fame. All right, is there anybody online? No, I didn't think so. All right, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
I'll motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Didn't think so. We are out of public hearing.
Hey, Jeff, before we move on to the next item, it might be appropriate within the public hearing to mention the emails that we received.
Oh,
And
I thought we discussed this last night and I thought you were going to do that.
Oh, sorry, I can do that real quick.
Sure.
And
Do you want a copy of it?
Just for the record, we don't have to read it. I don't think we have to read them in, but just to mention that we received two comments. The first one was from Ryan Kimball, representing Kimball Investments. And then the second comment we received was from, oh geez, I just had it up, but now I don't. From James, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. James Carpenter. Yeah, I think it's just Carpenter. Representing, he represents the International Sign Association and Sign Association of Utah.
That's the one that we received, right? You forwarded to us, Damien, I believe.
Yep. That's the one that should have came in today.
We got the one from Mr. Kimball
Oh, okay.
on
You see what
the square footage and the
I
height.
thought, but I could be wrong.
What time?
If you haven't had a chance to read it, if you'd like, I can read it into the record if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I don't. Why don't you go ahead and read it for us,
Okay.
please?
Yeah, so this was an email sent earlier today. So it's an Honorable Planning Commission Chairman Reed and West Haven Planning Commission. We are with the International Sign Association, and the Utah Sign Association represents the on-premise sign industry in Utah and across the country. Our members design, manufacture, install, and maintain on-premise signs for end users all over Utah, including West Haven. ISA provides complimentary assistance to local officials and communities to help develop effective and enforceable sign regulations. We are very supportive of the proposed amendments that updates the planned commercial sign standards. We do have some other suggestions for some of the existing portions of the existing sign code for your consideration, which are attached in the letter. And the letter that was attached I goes into, they have, their recommendation is for us to, regarding the height of the sign. Our definition, their comment to that is, it is best practice for the sign height to take into account when the location of the sign is below street grade. The sign height should be measured from the street grade. And then the next one is about like lumens for how bright a sign is, which we currently have a 500 lumens or 13.94 foot candles. And their comment to that was lumens and the FC per square foot equal to 145.9 nits and 150 nits respectively, which is not supported by the industry since this may lead to varying illumination levels for electronic message centers. As best practice, we recommend that the city utilize the 0.3 foot candle approach to electric message centers, which is the standard adopted by Lehigh, Provo, and Salt Lake County. This will ensure that the illumination standards for EMCs are uniform. See attached document recommending nighttime brightness levels for EMCs for more information in model language, and they included some examples.
Okay, thank you. All right. I think we're still out of public
Yep.
hearing, but we're on the record with all of that, so. All right, anybody have any thoughts on this, on the sign regulation ordinance? I did notice the one that recommended 40-foot or 45-foot high. I
High.
thought that
Yeah.
is extremely high. That's almost 4 stories, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
It is pretty tall. They did email me again because you might have noticed that
Yeah.
within the Kimball email, some of their concerns, the ordinance already addresses.
Right.
Really, most of the only concerns that our ordinance does not address is the height and size. They're recommending that signs that to allow for up to 300 square feet, and to allow for 45 feet tall. I hinted that the planning commission had the commission had even debated about 30 feet tall, which is the current recommendation.
Alright.
But they asked me to, in our conversation, just asked me to iterate that they felt like that was important for their property and would like the planning commission to take those into consideration.
Well, I don't know where their property is, so.
They are, Kimball Investments owns they don't own Walmart property itself, but they own pretty much every parcel around it.
Okay,
And so they are going to be the primary developers for not Walmart, but for all the commercial area on Midland to 4,000 within that property. I think if you look them up, they're 41st Street Investments and they own like 80 acres or something.
okay. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, personally, I drive around sometimes and I see these extremely tall signs with all these sub signs on it, and you're past it by time you can read the entire list of signs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't want to go that high. Anyway,
I just had a question regarding those from the sign. Utah, is that something we need to maybe look more at aluminums and all that? I didn't see that in the actual list.
So when I actually called him up and
Okay.
talked to him, about it today, after I got his email. What I essentially told him is, I mean, if the planning commission wants to pursue it tonight, then we definitely can. But his recommendation for the lumens was that it's a broader conversation, and they're recommending that we take that up sometime in the future.
Okay.
Because he feels like it's a complicated subject and the enforcement is also complicated. And essentially, they said, we're happy to help and provide some guidance if you'd like some. Um, and then he did feel however, in my conversation, he said that about that lumens, but he felt like altering the height would he felt was important and should be considered, or how we measure the height,
Okay.
which we do already have something in our code that does that a little bit. If you have a sign next to I-15, you measure the height of the sign from the closest lane to I-15, or closest lane to your property from I-15.
Okay.
That's partly done because I-15 is pretty tall around this where it goes through the city. But that same type of measuring standard is not applicable to anywhere else in the city.
Right.
So I was just trying, what the purpose is tonight, we're trying to just approve what we currently have and then later come back,
Yeah, so we could,
Potentially.
potentially?
yeah, if the planning commission would like, we don't necessarily have to address those comments today, even if you think they're important and we should address them. We could put that on a later agenda. Or if you'd like to, the code is open, so we can definitely discuss it or make changes to it tonight.
I'm just
as
trying to
well.
learn here, so I'm just trying to ask questions.
Oh, questions are the only way to learn.
Mm.
Just for a little bit of background, when we last looked at the sign ordinance, we got a lot of input from Councilman Ryan Saunders, who is a sign guy, and he was very helpful with the lumens part of it. So
Yeah.
we kind of had an expert in the field trying to help us with it. So.
And I don't know if this is important or not, but Ryan, I actually asked Councilmember Saunders to review this during our development process, and I incorporated his comments into the draft that's currently in front of us.
Okay, great. All right. Anybody
Steven,
else?
and I have a question
Sure.
on the 40-foot height. Does the ordinance leave room if there was some sort of a like MDA or something for all those parcels to be developed at once or under one essentially agreement? Is there room in there to adjust for that and allow that, or does that pretty much eliminate it from happening under any other? Does our ordinance eliminate it from happening at all? I guess that's the question.
So that's a really good question. So currently, our ordinance doesn't have a provision that proactively addresses that. Technically, the city could enter into a development agreement with any property owner under terms agreed to by both parties, as long as that development agreement follows the same process as if you're creating a new ordinance. So let's say a property owner wants to do a 45-foot tall sign or 40-foot tall sign. That's not allowed by our code, but for whatever reason, the city feels like it would be expedient to address that issue. That could be an option. I mean, I generally don't like doing my general recommendation is I don't like doing one-off development agreements. I get hesitant about governing so many properties through development agreement because it makes it difficult as time goes on to know how to enforce, and there's equitability that also comes into mind. If we're treating one property owner slightly different than another, though legally you'd be fine. It's more out of principle or policy. So I guess to answer your question is the code currently doesn't address that. Is it an option for the city? Yeah, the city probably could head down that path if the city found it expedient to do so.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I know I'm the one that brought up the height thing last meeting, but if one of the concerns is if they're developing all these separately, or if they end up selling off parcels, we definitely wouldn't want, 4 different signs that are that tall. but I could see where, because of the location of that specific property, where it might be considered elsewhere. But I don't think we need to put that in the ordinance. I don't think we need to necessarily prevent it from ever happening either. So I guess my question was if it's still open for consideration down the road for this property owner, then I'm fine with that, I guess. I think it'd be a long process and there'd still be a lot of steps to take to get there, but you know, if it's something that they really, 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 really want, they could try and figure it out with the city.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other discussion? All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the planning commission recommend approval of the proposed changes to the sign regulations contained within West Haven City Code 157.755 to 157.761 as provided.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Chair, excuse me, I apologize. Would we want to add the language about the 30-day for compliance? That's currently not in the draft
Yeah, it's
proposal
not
that's
in the
front of
current
you.
draft.
But if you feel comfortable with me just amending the ordinance to kind of fit that 30-day plus the flexibility to work with them, yeah, just
I do. Do you feel comfortable, sir, with
Yes,
your
sir.
motion? You want to modify it ever so slightly? Just to include,
To include the 30-day.
yeah, to allow staff to add that particular section to it.
Okay, I'll modify the motion to allow staff to make the exception and with the 30-day notice for violations of the site ordinance.
perfect.
All right.
And the second.
Okay, we still have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Item number 8, action and discussion to consider a preliminary site plan approval for a tire sales and service located at approximately 3645 South Midland Drive, parcel number 080220101 and 080220104, applicant Denny Kiley? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Damien, you're up.
Okay, so this is a preliminary site plan approval request. And it is for a Les Schwab Tire Sales and Service Center at the property at 3645 South on Midland Drive. The zone of the property is C2, Community Commercial, and the property size is 1.4 acres. A little bit of background on the request. Again, it is for a commercial tire sales and service center. The building that is proposed is a little over 8,200 square foot in size. The exterior finish, there's a mix of components in the exterior finish, one of which is some tilt-up concrete panels, and that is on a prominent facade, the facade that faces Midland Drive. And part of this request is the applicant is requesting that the Planning Commission recognize those tilt-up concrete panels as a primary material. So right now, concrete is listed as a secondary material without any further elaboration. It just says concrete. And what the applicant is proposing is not, it's more of like a segmented system of panels. So the commission may find that what is proposed is just as durable and just as attractive or aesthetic as those comparable materials that are listed in the primary materials list that's in the code. And that is something that the staff can, or that, sorry, the commission can either approve or deny. So with the proposal, it's actually parking deficient as well. So the code requires 40 parking stalls, whereas 33 are proposed. And that has been modified. So the original proposal did contain all 40 parking stalls, but the applicant was actually deficient in the proposed landscape. So after the landscaping modification, we are now deficient in parking by 7 stalls. However, they did provide us with engineer's assessment, and that assessment recommended that 33 is sufficient to serve the proposed use of the site, given the square footage of the building and also the service space that are contained there. That letter was also attached in the report that was provided by staff. So that is another exception that the Planning Commission may approve or deny. And then lastly, there is some utility concerns at the property. So the property right now does not have any utility will serve letters, excuse me, for either primary or secondary water. And that is a code requirement for preliminary review. However, the water service providers have stated that an annexation is required for both primary and secondary. And they will not entertain an annexation without some kind of proof that the project is moving forward. And we believe that preliminary approval would be that proof that would allow or enable annexation. So we're in kind of like a cart before the horse, or what comes first, the chicken or the egg, you know? So we are hoping to obtain preliminary approval so that way we can also trigger those annexations.
It is important. We have talked to the water providers and we have some communications with them. The real issue is there's not enough water. I think it's water pressure, water flow with the current within Taylor West Weber to support the site. And so they are wanting to de-annex from there and annex into West Haven Special Service District, which is on the other side of the road, and then bore under the highway, which they've also talked to UDOT about as part of their pre-application meeting. And the parties and Weber Basin doesn't really serve the area, and neither does Roy, but Roy is also across the street. And the parties have indicated to us that they would like to see, before they take these permanent measures and district boundaries, they want to ensure that the project's actually moving forward and will happen.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. So, so we are hoping to obtain preliminary site plan approval without those letters, which we would otherwise require at this level. And then lastly, the city engineering comments have been provided with the corrections report that was referenced in the staff's report. So that was an attachment. Engineering has also expressed some concerns about water retention on the site. He's afraid that the preliminary stormwater plan that's proposed is not going to work. However, staff would also remind the commission that that will have to be figured out before final. All civils, all utilities, and this to include SWIP and stormwater will need to be approvable before final site plan approval. And for that reason, staff has recommended the condition of approval that all members of the DRC or the West Haven Development Review Committee do provide their approval on the complete site plan packet prior to final site plan approval. So with that, staff does recommend the approval of the preliminary site plan with the said condition. And staff does also defer to the commission for their approval on or not on the requested parking reduction as well as the requested material exception. So we have 3 total decisions to make, 3 total motions to make.
I'm gonna ask that, okay.
Mhm.
I couldn't really tell on the drawings, Damien, will there be any signage on 3600?
That I do not recall. I believe that is the facade right there, the rear elevation, if you scroll up a little bit. So there will be,
I meant like a monument sign or something like that.
yes. Well, it would be on the site plan, I believe.
Yeah,
And Kylie can.
I really
correct me if I'm
couldn't
wrong.
zoom in enough to be able to tell.
Mhm.
Perhaps the applicant knows.
Yeah, Damien, I can step in. I just wasn't sure what the right venue was for me to, if I can
No, sure,
talk now
go
or
ahead.
wait. Okay. Yeah, good evening, commissioners. Denny Kiley here with Graham, representing Les Schwab Tires. And to that question, Commissioner, we are not currently proposing any kind of monument or pylon on the 3600 side of this property. We're just showing the one pylon sign kind of in the southeast corner in that landscape island
Okay,
off of Midland.
okay. So there would be one though on the north side of the building?
We aren't planning for one on the north side right now, sir. It would just be the building signs themselves located on the northwest and northeast side of the building that I think Damien was alluding to.
Okay. And since I'm the parking guru around here, is the parking on the north side primarily going to be for your employees?
Yes, sir. I don't believe we would mark it as employee only parking, but
Right.
the intent would be most of our customers would be on that southwest parking lot area.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more question because that's what I'm good at. We didn't really get a close-up look at the alternate materials that you're talking about, but can I assume this looks pretty much like every other Les Schwab tire center that I've ever seen?
I would say, I guess that depends on the age of the tire centers you've seen, sir. I think Les Schwab's new prototype buildings are really nice. The material we're showing, especially on that public facing side on Midland, we're showing, it definitely material breakups. So you have that kind of brick veneer that's intermingled with those panels like Damien was mentioning. And those panels, although some of them are smooth face, they do have a rake finish to them. So they're not bland, at least in my opinion. They're aesthetically pleasing.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Right, yeah, I saw that one, Robin. I was just wondering if there was one where that north parking lot was. So. Okay.
Damien, was the four things again were the cement walls, right?
Yeah, so this cement panels,
Panels, okay,
yeah, that is a material exception request.
okay.
Or sorry, concrete panels. The concrete panels aren't really specified in our materials list. Concrete itself is specified as a secondary material.
Okay.
And in order to make the material percentages work for primary materials on the Midland facade,
Sure.
then we would have to consider the proposed tilt-up concrete panels as a primary. So if the commission moves to deny that request, then they will have to change that facade and only that facade.
Sure. I was just trying to make sure I understood all the water annexation, right, the runoff water.
Yeah, those are not associated with an exception request, though.
And the parking reduction.
Yep, from 40, which was
33.
required, down to 33. That would also be, or that would be the third approval. The first, of course, being the site plan itself.
Yeah, we would recommend in order that before the site plan is approved, that you consider the the two exceptions, or the parking motion and for the materials motion, just to clarify that those were that the preliminary approval took place after those were granted.
Anybody have anything else? Sounds like no. Well, with that, with that, I'll entertain a motion to consider preliminary site plan approval for the tire sales and service located at approximately 3645 South Midland Drive, parcel 080220101 and 080220104. Guess we'll have to take them in order.
So each one individually?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think in the packet, it has the possible motions in order of parking, alternate materials, and,
So a motion,
the
and then we
site
vote
plan.
on it, then motion and vote on it. then I guess.
Correct.
Okay, I'll do it.
and I don't see any reason why on the parking reduction, we have to go any further than from 40 to 33. We don't need to list all that other stuff, do we? About the engineering principles and all
Not
that?
necessarily. The code recommends those as considerations, so we included those in the motion just for clarity that we took the things within the code under consideration.
Okay, well,
So this is mostly for clarification.
all right, well.
Okay.
let's Go ahead.
All motion to grant the preliminary approval of the proposed site plan for the Les Schwab Tire Center at 3645 Midland, finding that the general design of the proposed site and buildings is compliant with the applicable regulations of the ordinance when the following conditions of approval are applied. A conditional access permit is obtained from UDOT prior to final site plan approval. The approval of the complete plan set is obtained from all development review committee members prior to final site plan approval. And all staff comments and corrections in the attached report are satisfactorily addressed prior to final site plan approval to include signage corrections.
And I'll second that for the preliminary site plan.
Same. I would recommend before we approve that,
You want to go to the parking?
that we
first?
would do the parking and alternate
Yeah.
materials, improve those, or consider
do that
those
first.
items before final approval.
I'll move on to motion to grant the approval of proposed parking adjustment for unusual and unique conditions, reducing the minimum parking space requirements from 40 to 33, finding that the reduction is based on accepted engineering principles as provided by the parking memo by Zach Graham, P.E., and unique circumstances relating to the operational characteristics of the use, that such adjustment be equitable and warranted as required by 157.634. And then I'll also motion for alternative materials.
We want to do those one at a time, correct?
Oh.
I'll second
Yeah,
your
that's what-
motion.
Okay, sorry.
Yep.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Alternate materials.
Okay, alternate materials, motion to grant approval of the proposed alternate materials to allow the provided insulated concrete panels as a primary material, finding that the requested material is comparable to or superior to the listed and approved materials as outlined within the staff report.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I don't think.
The first motion, we haven't voted.
All
on.
right, we didn't vote on the first one, parking. So let's go back and vote on the parking one, which we have a motion and a second.
Didn't we vote on the parking one? It was just,
Okay.
it was just the preliminary site.
Oh,
plan.
Okay. Which one did we miss?
The preliminary site
plan.
plan approval was motioned in second, but not voted.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, they said they wanted that one last,
Oh, sorry.
so I think the alternate materials is the one that we have up now, correct?
Right, that's correct.
Okay, I'm not as messed up as I think I am. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the alternate materials. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now, preliminary site plan, and I think you read that one just great.
Thank you.
And I'll second it. So all in favor of the preliminary site plan?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, thank you. All right,
you.
item number.
Sorry, that was a little complicated.
Yeah, just a little bit. All right, item number 9, discussion and action for a conditional use permit for a home occupation located at 4267 South, 3450 West, parcel number 084-520-012, applicant Russell Burton. Is the applicant here? You guys just came for fun. Boring night at home, huh? Okay. Yeah. All right. So is this you, Damien, again?
It is, yeah.
Okay, go ahead and talk to us.
So this is a request for a conditional use permit to allow for a home occupation at 4267 South on 3450 West. That is a mixed use zone, and the residential property is about 6,300 square feet in size. A little bit of background on the request. We did at the city receive a home occupation license request for a floor covering business for the property. The floor covering business would use exterior space on the property, specifically the side of the home, for the storage of a trailer and a work-related truck, as well as some tools and materials that would be stored in the garage. So the applicant has also expressed that they would be using, that all work would be conducted off-site at the work at the work location, at the client's location, and no work would be conducted at home or on the property. And staff would just like to note that this request would otherwise be would be approvable at the staff level, other than the use of outdoor space on the property in conjunction with the business. So that is what staff's analysis in the report that was provided is mainly focused on is that outdoor use of the business and whether or not it creates detrimental effects to the neighborhood and the surrounding community. So with the outdoor storage, what is proposed is not entirely approvable by the zoning code. When it comes to business-related vehicles being stored on a residential property, we do require an impermeable surface, is what the code reads. So asphalt or concrete, and all parking would need to be located on a parking pad made of that material. So one staff would recommend that in our approval that we also condition it on the fact that a parking pad is developed on the site, and that parking pad is also graded so as to not drain on the neighbor's property, because there is some grading on that side yard. And the side yard is somewhat narrow, so staff sees that condition of approval as appropriate. And also, staff, by code, a driveway is to be developed also to extend off of that or the existing driveway and to connect with that parking pad. And that is required by code as well. So staff recommends that as part of the condition of approval. Staff finds that the applicant's storage of materials and tools in the garage is highly consistent with normal residential garage use, as long as space is kept clear for residential parking. So staff didn't see that as an issue. Staff has the one condition of approval recommended, and that is listed in your staff reports that have been provided. And with that said, staff does recommend the approval of this request, subject to the said condition.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions?
Basically, they're gonna be storing a truck and trailer in the side of the house like anybody else would, but
Yep.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I went by there and there's already a vehicle and a trailer parked on the side of the house, but it's actually not unusual for that neighborhood to have all kinds of trailers and stuff parked in there, so.
So my concern with this goes to the cart before the horse comment you made earlier,
Mm-hmm.
in that if we approve this conditional use permit, then he can use his home occupation business and the trailer gets parked on the side of the house. And then putting that parking pad in the future is going to be problematic because the trailer, he's going to be wanting to use that place for the pad. So, I think and it doesn't take long to put in a concrete parking pad. My recommendation would be that the issuance of the conditional use permit will be predicated upon completion of the parking pad and the driveway leading to that parking pad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we approve it as staff recommend you approve it, then it would essentially become a code enforcement issue. We would have to enforce the conditional use permit predicated on the fact that he later gets or establishes that driveway and parking pad that I've recommended. So it is harder to enforce, and we will have to drive by the property and check, because we don't require a site plan approval for a residential neighborhood with flat work like that. Another option is that you could also approve the conditional use permit, but on condition that the business license is withheld until the parking pad and the driveway is established. And that would be easily enforced, because then we at the planning level could just withhold the business license.
Yeah, I just don't want to put this on code enforcement when we have the prerogative right here to take care of it without putting an additional burden on code enforcement. So that's my preference, that we do it that way.
I completely understand that and respect that. Another option is to, well, table the the request until that infrastructure is established.
That and the applicant shows up. That would be nice to have him state publicly on the record that he will do those things.
Mhm.
Perhaps we should table it. I don't know.
Is this a kind of existing business that he's already, we're just wanting to start?
No, he is not legally allowed to operate out of his home yet, not until we approve the business license.
That
Okay.
doesn't mean that he doesn't have a business going already.
Right.
Yep.
I was just wondering, that's a lot to, especially if he has to pay somebody to pour that. I don't see an easy answer. Somebody's got to pour concrete before you can park there, but you're trying to do the right thing. That's a tough one.
I think we should approve it, but what did you say? How can we make sure it's done before he actually gets a license? Not table it, because then it comes back to us again and it's just one more thing we have to do, right? But approve it where we don't actually give him the license until we see proof that he has it. Would code enforcement have to come out, or could he just bring pictures and show us that he has it done? Get his license.
Yeah, bringing in pictures, I think, would be more appropriate if we were to actually table it, would be my understanding. One option, and the first option that I recommended, is that you could approve the conditional use permit, but you can modify the condition that staff proposed, and you can modify it so that staff withholds the business license until the applicant establishes that the infrastructure, the parking pad, and also the driveway extension.
Do we already know if he has a business license and is operating somewhere else and then just planning to bring this to his home, or what's the status of that?
No, we don't know. We didn't research into that.
I would kind of like to table this without him being here. Usually if somebody wants to have a home occupation, they generally show up to be able to ask the planning commission and let us ask him questions. So,
With that on, we'll make a motion to table.
all right.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'm assuming that's the table. Yes, you
Table.
said that. I heard that. So all in favor of tabling it, say aye.
I,
Aye. Did I hear Andrew?
Nay.
Okay. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay, sorry.
Oh, he said nay. Okay, all right. So we have Andrew opposed.
Me too.
Oh, you too. Okay,
I thought I did it in the iPhone. I apologize.
all right. So we have two oppositions and motion carries. All right, item number 11, my favorite. Adjournment.
Well, no, I think we got 10.
Number 10?
See?
Okay. Oh, yeah, we're back to those policies and procedures again. Darn. Item number 10, discussion and action to consider adoption and a recommendation of the city council on amending the planning commission policies and procedures. All right, it's back to you, Stephen.
Yeah, I can head up the conversation. So the several planning commissioners, and we've talked about this a few times, but
You mean me?
namely one, maybe one planning commissioner particularly has requested we review the policies and procedures with the end goal of simplifying them. Currently, they're about 10 pages long and are pretty detailed in how we handle the day-to-day motions. Where the city, however, in contrast, city council has a much shorter document that is more general in its application. And so with that in mind, the planning commission has requests or that we've brought back some policies and procedures and have provided a document that I believe conforms to what what the recommendations have been. And, and so because this is the approval, I'll go through the primary changes just for the record. So the first big change that we did was in section 2, where we eliminated we replaced the conflict of interest section with a simplified version that is more reliant on the state code definition and that models the city councils. We also eliminated the paragraph in that same section regarding planning commissioners wishing to give a public comment. Essentially, that required you to go and give public comment down there, and then you couldn't discuss the rest of the matter. And then we also eliminated the political activity section and treatment of information. I felt like that was already covered in other sections of state code. Then moving on to section 3, we just clarified that some of the regular meetings scheduled and work sessions could be held that work sessions would be held typically at 5 o'clock or as designated by the chair of the planning commission and notices provided. And then there's a few other minor changes throughout these couple sections, but the big meat of it comes down in section 4, where we really eliminated sections. Let's see, we removed sections. We essentially rewrote section 4 and then removed section 5 through 9 of the rules of order. And mostly what these are is consolidation of the general procedures of the planning commission. A couple of the changes from our last meeting is I added G, rules of governing the public hearing, and essentially incorporated our public hearing rules into the rules of order. And then the other big change that I did in this section was initially in my gusto of deleting everything, I deleted a section that I probably shouldn't have. So I added, it's now section K, but it's the deadlines for agenda. And so this is just establishing the planning commission deadline for applications. I didn't change anything in the language. I just re-added it from
I'm
last
just on a
time.
planning commission call.
What? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I forgot to mute myself.
And
That's
so
what I should do is mute myself.
yeah, those are the general changes. So just by our code, and the ordinance, the governing code that governs the planning commission states that and I'll just read this just because it's short. It says the planning commission may adopt such policies and procedures for the conduct of its meetings, the proceedings of applications, and for any other purpose as the commission may from time to time consider to be necessary for the functioning of the planning commission. And the next paragraph is the policy and procedures adopted by the commission must be approved by the city council before taking effect. So essentially what's before us tonight is the adoption of the policies and procedures as indicated by code. However, they would have to go to city council before they could come into effect. So that's why when you look at the motion, it's a motion to adopt and not recommendation of adoption, just because the code states that the planning commission adopts them and then they're later approved by the city council. And are there any questions?
I still have one, and it's 4D. Any member may call for a vote on a motion at any time. And then a vote will be held on the motion. And I'm just trying to understand what circumstances would cause that to happen.
Yeah, that's a good question because generally the chair within their duties calls for a motion. I think the idea on this is if potentially for whatever reason, the planning commission or a planning commissioner feels like there should be an opportunity for a motion to be called, but the chair doesn't agree, that then that member could call for a motion to be made.
In other words, the chair's being a jerk. There you go. All right, it's the jerk rule. I got you. Makes sense to me. Yeah, she did say she had some planning
Parent
or
teacher
parent
conference.
teacher conference things to do. All right, that was the only question I had. Again, excellent work. I'd make a motion, but I can't, so. It's to consider it, to recommend to the city council.
Yeah, so I believe my recommended would be motion of the planning commission adopt and recommend that the city council approve.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, I make a motion to consider adoption and recommendation to the city council on amending the planning commission policies and procedures.
And I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did you respond,
Andrew
Andrew?
didn't respond.
He's on mute.
I thought I did, sorry.
You're good. Thank you. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, now on to my favorite one. Item number 11, adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Aye.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
op- All right, no opposition.